All right. Welcome everyone to another live stream from Product People. Today, our topic is product management in crisis, what's fake and what's true, with our amazing speaker, Carolina Castanheira, who is the Director of Product at HelloFresh. Before we begin, I'd like to give a brief introduction about myself. My name is Karshasap. I am from Pakistan and I've been working with Product People for a while. I have worked in multiple B2B startups before, as well as some B2C startups as well, primarily in fintech. And I did my bachelor's, like I said, from Pakistan, as well from NUST. So a little bit about Product People. So we basically provide interim product managers for product leadership or product ops or product management roles. And we curate free events and talks for Europe's largest PM community. And without further ado, I'd like to give the floor to Carolina. Carolina, please go ahead.
Thank you. I hope you guys can hear me well. Let me start presenting quickly here. So we'll be talking today about our product management function, right? Is it in crisis? What is true? What is fake? And how to navigate your career? I wanted to thank everybody for joining today. I also thank the product people for organizing this. I'm really excited. So cool. So today I thought we could use this time to build a shared understanding of this topic, right? Rather than me just talking about it. So I proposed we use Menti as a way to collect also the input from the audience. So if you're here, just bring your phone, together, and then scan the QR code, and you can participate together with me. Cool. So before we start, let's talk a little bit about me so you know who I am and what I'm doing, right? I have been building tech products for more than 20 years. So mostly data products like geo-marketing business intelligence tool, a web application at the time, it was a long time ago when I still worked in Brazil, where I'm from. And then I moved to Europe and mainly worked in the mapping industry at Here Technologies, and then after at a Lithuanian startup called Trafi. In these companies, I developed like intermodal routing algorithms and also a mobility analytics platform. And since 2020, I've been working at HelloFresh, where I'm mostly heading product portfolio. And product portfolio at HelloFresh is like the most business area of product management. So it's all about our 1,200 employees in tech, like delivering the most value they can. Are they creating enough visibility for leadership and for each other on what they are planning to build and building and how they are executing towards the company goals? Then since 2018, I'm also been coaching people professionally. So before that, I used to coach a lot of people, not professionally. And I am a lover of stories. I say I like reading, I like watching, but I also tried writing and performing. Nothing really published, but but I still have a big goal to do that one day. And I spend a lot of time with my family and my friends, and especially my niece and my nephews. Cool. So if you joined just now and you are not sure how this is going to work, this QR code here allows you to participate. And I will start with one question to everybody. Let's talk about you a little bit. So what is your function? Cool. I still saw some answers coming. Yeah, I still some. Surprised to see so many analytics people on the group, but more or less distribution how we expected, right? Much more product managers than other functions in usually common function in tech teams. Cool. Thank you for answering. And as a profession, do you think product management is in crisis? Okay, cool. We see a majority of us don't have an opinion yet. And we see like product folks don't think, a majority of the product folks either don't have an opinion or not, but some of product people still think we are in crisis, and I think it's a cool mixed feeling for the audience, right? So let's see what we come up with as we discuss. So now a little bit harder, right? Like, why would you think that? If it's in crisis, if it's not, what is the evidence that you are basing this opinion on? Although majority of you said, I don't have an opinion yet, but maybe you heard something about it. Not many people willing to share what is there. Too much talk about it, a little understanding. See, actual experiences, seeing at different companies. Going to lectures. Yeah. Lack of clear strategy, not enough information. Very interesting. Some of the answers, right? I love this one. Come to Jesus moment for profitability. Layoffs, yes. Lack of understanding. US more technical. A lot of cool things, huh? Rapidly changing market. So I think like this is the feeling, right, of everybody. There is, I think, like some of the topics here that I hear, a lot of tech layoffs, a lot of companies looking into, how do you say, profitability, and not really understanding what is the value that product management brings. There is a lot of lack of clarity on what product management should do. So hopefully we can together create a little bit more clear view on these topics today. So talking about evidence, right? Like when one sees some articles around the trends in the industry, like layoffs or tech companies like looking for short ways to make to grow or to make profitable businesses, right? I think it's easy to wonder how this affects one's employability or the profession overall, right? Like I think everybody can have this sense of uncertainty in a way. One of the evidence that I think most of the people look into, as we saw, is layoffs, right? So in my personal experience, it is true that product managers, UX, right, designers are often first target of layoffs than engineers, for instance, right? Company will cut less later engineers than they will cut these functions. But it's also my personal experience that majority of these people that is laid off, soon enough they get another position in the business, right? Because there is a shortage of tech people, there is a shortage of people with product skills, people with UX design skills. Maybe not everybody has the same experience depending on where they live or how senior they are in the market, right? But I have this experience that a lot of my colleagues never stayed too much like on the unemployment phase for such a long time. I think there is also like these buses, right, about moving product under engineering or under here on when they're there. And I think like the Airbnb fuzz was the most fun topic of the past months, right? And I think there is a lot of also misunderstanding of where product management comes from, right? So when I started 2 decades ago, managing a product, right, and managing a portfolio of products of a company, I had to take a marketing course. There was no product people. There was no product management course, right? I went for a marketing course. And there is where you learn a lot about product portfolio management. You learn a lot about product strategy, right? And up to today, most of the like awesome case studies on product are around marketing strategies and how products were badly introduced to people or well introduced to people. I also see my company, like sometimes we do some movements like moving a product leader under an engineering leader, you know, to consolidate a little bit decision making or to help teams escalate fast. And I see a lot of product people getting a little bit like worried. What does it mean for the profession? And sometimes it doesn't mean anything. It means just that we want to streamline a little bit like communication or making sure that one person is the single point of escalation for topics around prioritization or things like that, right? So I think like when we are working in companies and we see some movements, we need to think about like why this is happening. I think like on the Airbnb case was very clear. It was a move to make designers a little bit more owners of the product, right? In a way, the product development, let's say like this, and making product people more focused on how to communicate the product to newer audiences or other audiences, especially in the aftermath of the pandemic for Airbnb, it was really important. So I think like try to think about like what is true on the evidence, what is your personal experience, what you are seeing your colleagues or other ex-colleagues or peers going through. And if we look at a little bit about what the experts say, right? So if you know me a little, you know I'm a fan of Marty Kagan. So I went to look into what is he saying. And I think he published like 3 articles in the past month or so about the theater in product management that tells us a lot about this topic, right? And he said, people with true product skills have historically been very valuable, and I'm betting that they will continue to be the case through the changes ahead. And the changes ahead, he was talking a little bit about how the pressure is on product tech and product teams, right? How much AI is going to come into play, and a lot of other trends that we are hearing today. So taking a step back from me talking for more than 5 minutes, what is your experience for you? Are product managers valuable? And here, like we know the audience is full of product people, so do not necessarily agree with it just because you're a product manager. Oops. almost there. Yeah, I love how people are how do you say, candid here, right? Like I had both ways. I also had both ways, right? I think like 'cause sometimes as a colleague, I'm like, what is this person doing, right? Or what is happening here? It's good that everybody kind of agrees that there is some value to product management. At least nobody said, nope, I'm happy with that. Although I'll take the challenge. Now let's make a little bit harder, right? How are product managers valuable to you in your experience? Because it's easy to say, yeah, I am fine. And this one, I think we asked you to rank different options. So okay, cool. Interesting. Solving customer problems is on the top for the majority of people, creating competitive product vision, driving revenue, profitability, bring products, features to the market, maximize their ROI, get the team to deliver. Thank God is the last. Cool. I think like we have almost everybody answered. I would say this picture here does tell me we're a bit in crisis, right? Like when we look into this, and I think like the first and the last might be correct and might be not correct in a sense, might be like what we think product managers should be doing, right? When I see the position of creating a competitive product vision versus drive revenue or maximize the ROI in product development activities, as a product portfolio manager, I get a little bit squishy, right? Like for me, product people are necessarily much more important to help drive revenue, profitability, and maximize the ROI than create a compelling product vision. Although it is majority of the times what we tell product managers they need to do. They need to create a compelling product vision, but it's a compelling product vision that drives revenue and profitability and then maximize the ROI of the team, right? Like this is what I understand is a good balance. But I think like it's cool to see what you guys like understand and also go back to the problems that we're seeing, right? Not everybody know what product management should do, what we should work on and everything. So I think like what you wanted to hear, right? It was to hear my point of view. So the product portfolio manager, my point of view is that, right? But why do I think like that? Why do I think that product managers are as responsible for driving profitability and revenue and maximizing the ROI in product development activities as they are in creating a compelling product vision, or even more responsible for that, right? So if you think about you as a product manager, right? Where do you spend most of your time today? And I think like I haven't included all the activities here. I just wanted to make sure we had some activity. So if you do more than this or not much of these things is also okay. You can put 100% on what you do. I don't know if everybody had time to answer, but I think like this answer is super cool, right? If we look about our previous topic and this one, right? We said that product managers deliver value because they solve customer problems. Everybody agrees on this, right? But we spend most of the time talking to stakeholders and documenting requirements. Everybody here does that, and like we know about it, and it's cool. Also, we said that get the team to deliver is like the least part of how we add value as product managers is still 23% managing the team and delivering features, right? So this is a cool picture because it tells exactly what is the position that product managers are nowadays in some companies, right? We all talk about like what we should be doing. We know what we should be doing sometimes, maybe we haven't seen other people doing that, or we don't have the space to do that. But at the end of the day, we feel responsible as product managers to get things out the door and to make sure that whatever is out the door, is like fulfilling the requirements, or making sure that, the stakeholders understand what we are building. Yeah. And this is also like what I experienced in my whole career, especially if you get into a team that is still like information, or depending on who is managing the team, right? You have to be super hands-on, and you have to like operate the backlog in very detail, and making sure the priorities are really on the sprint level, like very clear. And there are some times where you work with teams that are a little bit more mature, where tech lead or someone else in the team is already like much more into managing the priorities, giving the requirements from the product, the priorities from the product, but they can do this on a sprint level. So it all depends on where you are, but I think it's interesting to compare the picture that we painted before on how we add value, and the picture on how do we spend our time to think about what we should do. So if you think like, what is my opinion, right? And I said before, I'm a fan of Marty Kagan, but product development is risky. If it's not risky, it's not development. It is delivery. It is copy paste. How many of us didn't do product copy paste? I did. Like when Google launched the pen functionality in the map, I had to copy the pen functionality in my tool because the users were like, why do I have this thing that I have to click right and left? Why don't you do the pen thing? So I did copy and paste. It's, how do they say? Copy is the highest form of flattery, right? So it's okay to do that. Sometimes it's profitable. Sometimes it's valuable. It's not important if it's copy and paste, if it's not, but you need to think about like what is the role of product management? And if you are doing just copy and paste or just delivery, you know, and just managing things like a project, maybe you don't need product management, right? Product management key contribution is to reduce value and viability risks, or to de-risk, right, the product decisions in terms of value and viability. But to de-risk value and viability decisions, product managers need to obsess about two things and not one thing: solving customer problems and driving business outcomes, because viability is all about product business outcomes, right? Would this product work for my business? And I don't know you, but I work for a business, right? A profit-driven business. So we need to look into growth, revenue, profitability metrics, right? All the time. It's not enough to say, oh, I'm solving this customer problem, and so what, right? Like, what is the business outcome? But how many times have you heard that product teams can either drive business outcome or solve customer problems? Never. More than you would like, or every conversation you have with sales, every marketing, operations. This is a lucky one that never hears that. I hear this so often. I find these 11 people so lucky. And to not say like it's just a problem of my audience, I brought here, and it's not to shame anybody, right? But the Future of Product Report 2024 says, trend number one, product teams are contributing to revenue growth, not just adding user value. I'm happy to hear that this is a trend, but the wording of this trend suggests that up to now, we were not driving revenue or profitability, right? And this is what I mean to say, that underlying the talk about product management, about customer value, there are sometimes a bias saying like, we can either solve customer problem or make profit. We cannot do both at the same time. And I think like the real great product managers, they find this little pockets, right, where you can actually solve a customer problem and still drive a lot of business value, either in terms of driving costs down or increasing revenue. So for me, it's like, no wonder we wonder if product management is in crisis or not, right? Like, there is a lot of talk about like, how do we add value? But at the same time, it's not followed through with how companies place us and where they talk about. But there is, for me, also companies today, they're facing a value crisis, right? Like, if we think about in the past decade, there was unprecedented access to investments, and a lot of companies developed too many products that were not sufficiently de-risked in terms of value and viability, right? And I think like I think everybody knows some of the examples, right, of products or companies that you could think about like that were not de-risked enough? Anybody has anything on the top of their mind? Google Glass. Yeah, we can also look into how many apps don't show up like all the time, right? Or how many features companies have in their tools like Zoom and Miro, that people barely use. Is not necessarily like sometimes it's very difficult to hear like a big company, yeah, Uber in some markets also couldn't really make it work the way that they wanted, right? Either because of regulations or other situations. So this is really cool. So if you think like, what can product managers do about it, right? In your career, what can you do? So one thing that you can do to make sure you are adding value is focusing on the risking product decisions earlier and faster, right? How do you do this? Fast feedback loops, everything that we know about discovery and delivery, if you work in smaller teams, right? At HelloFresh, for instance, we don't work necessarily on a very short fast loop between discovery and delivery. We do as fast as we can, but sometimes we do have a longer loop because there are multiple opportunities, let's say, that we need to act on nowadays that require multiple teams to collaborate. This is also a factor of scale. But if you work in a small team with 4 or 5 squads, right, and you all have this ownership in the product, you can really make decisions fast and you can really add a lot of value by the risking product decisions faster. And when I say this, is like really going on and trying to use multiple strategies to do that, right? So if you think about in your career, what were the strategies that you use to de-risk product decisions the most? Yeah, I think like user research, right, is one type of often a strategy that you can do when you don't have a project, especially when you don't have a product yet. When, for instance, I was building the mobility analytics platform, we didn't have a client, right, a customer. We were like completely spearheading a new product, and we had to do a lot of user research or market research, right? I think if you look into existing product, right, using historical data is super interesting to do that, or doing short experiments. Some teams cannot do experimentation due to the nature of their product, so they go into prototyping. I think like a lot of, especially sometimes feasibility tests, right, like require much more prototypes. So in terms of their risking, strategy would be more a feasibility risk, but sometimes you can also do value, how do you say, value de-risking with prototyping, with like smoke tests, right? Or something like this that emulate. Looking at competitors is also a good strategy to de-risk product decisions, right? Like, is there anyone doing that type of logging nowadays or not, like, and then you can go from there. Data that we already had exactly is a little bit more about the historical data. So I think this is super cool. MVPs, yes, time boxed POCs is also the same as prototyping, right? I don't know what are inside trains, but I will look into it. I would assume it's something around the research and data, right? I think like agile and data is a little bit generic for me to be able to comment. I think if you think about working iteratively, which is what agile in small increments, right? It's what agile means for some people. Then I would say, yes, this is part of this iterative process. Cool, very good. The second is develop skills that get you closer to the customer, the business, and the data, right? Like if you think about your product today, and this is not necessarily a question, but it's more like a reflection, right? It's not a slide that you guys will be able to comment on. But in terms of customer, right? Which customer user problem is worth solving now, right? Are you solving the best problem that you should be solving today for your user, for your customer? Or are you trying to like just create a great way to go to the moon, and then people will not be joining that train like now, right now, your customers specifically? Will the solution solve the problem in a way that drives business outcomes, right? Because usually there are multiple alternatives for a problem, right? Like we choose a solution that fits our infrastructure or the type of product we want to launch, right? Because you can deliver the same multiple solutions to solve the same problem. So what problem is your company solving is also a choice which solution you are delivering or building or doing. And then you need to choose as a product manager what would be the best solution. And sometimes I tell my teams that the best solution is to not build, right? I always said that from a product portfolio perspective, if someone tells me they do a lot of research and they come to the conclusion they're not going to build something because it's not profitable, I am like, that's super cool, but how we are going to solve the customer problem? Right. And then you can deprioritize that problem. It could be like it's not solvable with or you can look for more creative ways or interesting ways. And then in terms of data, right, how we will know that the solution is solving the problem and driving business outcomes is all about like, how do we metricize your domain? Are you collecting the right data? Are you understanding the data correctly, right? So if you think about these skills, which ones have you mastered already? Cool. And if you have to think about which skill would you develop further? Very cool. And finally, you know, if you are really worried about what you are doing, I would say, like, reflect, are you placed in a position to deliver value as a product manager? A lot of companies want to hire product managers because they want to be in the bus, they want to be on the top of the wave. But at the end, they hire people that they want to do other things than the risk, value, and viability product decisions. Yeah. So this you take as a homework, because I think like this takes a lot of courage for people to think about this and also decide, like, would you like to continue to be in this position, or would you have to do to move into a position where you can develop more or deliver more value as a product manager? Thank you, folks.
Thank you, Carolina. Can you stop sharing? I can share my screen then.
Yes.
Thank you, Carolina. This was an amazingly interactive and insightful session. Really, really fun. So now I'm gonna open the floor for questions from our audience. If anybody wants to ask any questions, please go ahead. Use the QR code, you can scan it, or you can go to Slido and use this code to ask any questions you might have. In the meantime, I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the use cases where product people might be able to help you. So we primarily help our clients in three ways. Start with interim or fractional product managers. We provide them on an interim basis for permanent position covers. For example, when you're hiring, for parental leave covers, or for urgent and important initiatives which require acute attention. Secondly, we provide product coaches or consultants or program managers to coach your product management team or create and streamline processes or programs in hypergrowth or at scale. And thirdly, for product discovery, we help you discover the next impactful initiative or product for your market, and or run a low or no code pilot or MVP. So these are some of the clients that we work with in the B2C space. As you can see, there are multiple industries: e-commerce, micromobility, real estate, etc. And some of our B2B clients can be seen right here, like Sastrify and Procurement Tech, the World Health Organization, the Ometria Marketing Tech, etc. Finally, I'd like to share some product people stats with our audience. So we have 200 cross-functional teams supported, 70 plus clients from Series A startups, publicly listed companies. We have 42 product leaders and product managers in-house and full-time to provide the best quality of service. And finally, we have 60% of our team is women, 66% particularly in terms of leadership. And this is primarily because of our strong bias to promote from within and our skills before CV's hiring process. Here you can see some of our amazing colleagues. There are amazing product experts who are a blast to work with. I say from personal experience, of course. Yeah, let's get back to the Q&As and let's see if there are any questions that we have for Carolina. Okay, so Carolina, first question: how do you ensure you do de-risk at a time that you follow timelines?
I think like the related, if I understood correctly, right? Like maybe is we have to deliver some features, right? So the teams are constantly like delivering, and we have like timelines to adhere to, like commitments that we made with stakeholders, you know. And at the same time, we need to do all this de-risking, discovery, right? That I would call discovery, because this is the part of discovery like that you have to do, right? So how do you dedicate time for both things? And I would say it depends on your team, right? Again, There are some teams where I see the product manager has to do a lot of the project management because the engineers are not great at it, or they don't like, or the engineering lead is not so focused on delivery, is more focused on managing the people. I don't know exactly what is your situation, right? But what you need to think about is that every time that you think about a new feature or someone comes with an idea for a new feature or a new product, you need to think about, is this valuable? Is this viable, right, for the company? And how do you answer these questions can be different depending on the resources that you have available. As I said before, when I was building the mobility analytics platform, I didn't have any engineers. I was hired to deliver a new product, right? I only had UX research. So we did a lot of what we can do with UX research. It doesn't mean that I didn't talk to engineers. It doesn't mean that I didn't consult experts. You know, we interviewed a lot of possible customers. So it depends on how much time do you have, right? But what is important to do is to really think about, in every product idea that you think, how can you de-risk these 2 points? Like engineers are going to de-risk the feasibility risks, right? Or UX is going to decrease the risk, the lovability, what I call, it's not usability, but lovability risk. Yeah. And in each of the cases, you need to understand like what resources do I have in my hands to be able to do that, and what's the best strategy.
Right. Thank you so much for that answer. And yeah, the next question is, does addressing customer issues automatically lead to generating revenue? Your thoughts on that?
As I said before, right? It depends, right? I would say what you have to is to flip it backwards, right? Is the only way to drive revenue in a product organization. In a product organization, I mean to say an organization that believes that consumers or users choose the best products, which is not true for every industry, because there are some industries that you force people to use a product, you don't have another option, right, as a user. But in a situation where users would choose a product, the belief needs to be they would choose the product that fits best what best product is for them. Maybe for some people is price, maybe for others is quality, maybe for some is a mix of both. So you need to think about, how can I add value to my customers that will bring me revenue, right? And no, not always sorting out customer problems will bring revenue, because sometimes you cannot solve the customer problem with your product, for instance, and that's okay, right? There are other products that will solve their problems. And sometimes you need to be okay with this. There is always a percentage of people that are not going to be, how do you say, served by your specific product. If not, you turn the product into a catch-all, which sometimes is also a bad thing, not necessarily a good thing.
Exactly. Yeah, you have to make your peace with it, I guess. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, I think we have time for one more question. So how can we shift the culture in a company accustomed to viewing PMs as project managers, I'm sorry.
My answer to this is, you don't shift the culture of a company, right? Like, the company culture needs to want to be shifted, right? There is a lot of companies trying to do this shift to become more product led, let's call it this, right? Or more product on the product model, as Marty Kagan will say. But this cultural shift is really complex, especially in companies that are very used to risk aversion, or they're very used to not accepting risk, right? Sorry to say, or they're very risk averse. Because at the end of the day, to do product development, you need to be able to think product development is risky. You need to be able to account for the risks in it, right? To allow teams to fail sometimes, so that they can, how do you say, bet on from a portfolio perspective, we say you have to bet in a different group of strategies, right? You have to bet in products or features that, let's say, are going to be your cash cows, right? That really bring you like users or revenue or something like this. But we also have to bet on the underdogs, right? On the ones that you don't know yet if it's going to fly or not, but the reward is going to be massive if you do. And these companies, sometimes they are really not looking into this. So they keep their products also small, right? And then you need to understand this. If you are in a company where they don't allow you to even mention the risks of product, they don't have strategies, or you don't have access as a product manager, access to resources to de-risk value, viability, feasibility, lovability, then it's very difficult to work in these companies as a product manager. You are going to be always a sort of project manager. There is a lot of value on that, right? And there are companies building good products with this model. It's just, I think, not sufficient to call oneself product manager if you are there project managing delivery. It's a great job. And it needs to be like considered as a great job, because there is also like this, how do you say, this situation today in the industry that project manager, good production is like project management is like, oh no, it's a bad thing to be a project. It's a great thing to be a project manager. There are projects that are really great. And when you don't have risks, you don't need to have product managers building the product. You need to have like really good program managers, project managers. And it's a fun experience also to work in. I worked in companies where I was more project manager than product manager. It's okay.
Right. Thank you. Thank you so much, Carolina, for your amazing thoughts and insights. So before we end, I'd like to let our audience know that Product People is, of course, hiring as well for associate product management roles and for product management roles. So if you want to check that out, you can scan this QR code, or if you want to subscribe to our newsletter to receive inspiring product stories, you can scan this QR code right here. And lastly, again, I just like to thank you, Carolina. Thank you so much for this amazing interactive session. It was really fun. And I'd like to thank my audience as well for being an interactive audience. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.